Hey guys, tonight we stand on the crumbling edge of two worlds in the spring of the date is May 22, and you're inside Constantinople, the last jewel of the Eastern Roman Empire. The city stretches around you like a tired giant, still proud but weary. Its stone walls are massive, triple lines of fortification, towers rising above, and the sea glittering on either side. But you can smell fear in the air as much as smoke. Fishmongers still shout in the markets, but their voices crack with nerves. Bells ring from Hagia Sophia, echoing strangely across near empty streets, and the once mighty avenues are dotted with shuttered houses. From the land walls you peer out, and the horizon is no longer just hills and villages. It's filled with tents, banners, and the shimmer of countless campfires. Mehmed II, just 21 years old, has dragged a massive Ottoman army across Anatolia and the Balkans, and now he surrounds you with soldiers from every corner of his empire. You hear the faint thud of mallets and the clink of chains as siege engines take shape. This is not just another raid, it's the end game. And here's your little reality check. You probably won't survive this. Few inside these walls will. But don't worry, tonight you're not rushing to the breach. You're walking with me through history. If you're watching, drop your city and local time in the comments. Let me see where you'd be holding the walls from. And if you want more journeys like this, make sure to subscribe, because we're only just beginning. So close your eyes, lean into the sound of the bells, and feel the tension of a city staring down its final siege. The city before the siege is impressive, but it is no longer what it once was. You trudge through neighborhoods where cracked mosaics still gleam in patches, and old aqueducts still carry water, though not as strong as before. Constantinople was once a metropolis of hundreds of thousands. Now barely 50,000 souls call it home. Many houses stand abandoned, roofs caved in, weeds sprouting in courtyards. The grandeur lingers, but it is patched and worn, like a faded tapestry. Still, the city remains a fortress unmatched. The Theodosian walls stretch across 5.5 kilometers, a triple system of ditches, outer walls and inner walls. Standing atop them, you sense their sheer bulk. The inner wall towers soar almost 12 meters high, studded with defensive towers. At certain points, the walls have been rebuilt after earthquakes, and you can trace fresh stone against older, darker blocks. These defenses have held against countless enemies: Avars, Persians, Arabs, Bulgars, Rus, and even Crusaders. The people whisper, if the walls fall now, it won't be because of stones, but because the end of the world has arrived. Inside, the city is divided by hills, each crowned with churches and palaces. Hagia Sophia, that massive dome that seems to float on air, still commands awe when sunlight pours through its windows. But its golden mosaics look down on fewer worshippers now. The Great Palace lies partly abandoned, while the Blachernay Palace near the walls houses the current emperor, Constantine XI. Palaiologos, the last emperor of Byzantium, walks the corridors with a solemn expression. He knows he bears not just a throne, but the last memory of a 1,000-year empire. In the markets, people sell bread, fish, and oil, though supplies are already dwindling. Women carry jars of water from the ancient cisterns, some so vast they feel like underground cathedrals. Children chase one another in alleys, though their laughter fades when the deep thump of Ottoman drums drifts over the walls. Priests lead processions through the streets, icons raised high, chants echoing against marble. You smell incense, but you also smell sweat, fear, and burning pitch as workers stockpile firepots and arrows. By the harbors, the Golden Horn glimmers under its great iron chain, drawn tight from the city to the Tower of Galata, across the water. That chain is Constantinople's lifeline. It keeps enemy ships out, ensures supplies can trickle in, and gives defenders some hope. You walk along the docks and see Venetian and Genoese ships moored, their sailors muttering in half a dozen languages. They've come as mercenaries, allies, or adventurers, but even they glance nervously at the sea horizon. They know the Ottoman fleet is gathering. As you move through the city gates, Kirkoportia, Cherisius, Golden Gate, you see workers strengthening them, carpenters hammering planks, masons filling cracks. These gates are where the last stand will be made. A few Italian engineers direct the labor, their shouts mixing with the clang of iron. Everyone feels the same thing. Constantinople is no longer just a city. It is a wall against an empire, a final outpost of Christendom pressed against an ocean of Islam. The people whisper stories as night falls. Some say angels will descend to defend the walls. Others say prophecies foretell a final emperor who will fall with the city. Fires burn on both sides of the battlements, one of faith, the other of fear. And above it all, the sky glows faintly red as the sun sinks. From the towers, you watch the Ottoman camps stretch into the distance, torches like stars across the plains. The sounds of their hammers and voices echo through the night, and you realize the siege is not weeks away. It has already begun. But past those walls in your mind, and the scale of what is waiting for you becomes clear. Out there on the plain of Thrace, stretching from the Sea of Marmara to the hills beyond the Golden Horn, stands an army like you have never seen before. Mehmed II, the Ottomans call him Fatih, the conqueror in the making, is only 21, but he has gathered men and machines with the confidence of someone who believes the world belongs to him. You scan the horizon, and it's not horizon anymore. It's canvas, leather, and banners. Tens of thousands of tents stretch in neat rows, smoke curling from cooking fires, horses tethered in long lines. By most estimates, 80,000 to 100,000 soldiers have marched here, though some claim more, others less. But numbers hardly matter when you see how organized they are. At the very core are the Janissaries, perhaps 10,000 strong, the elite infantry of the Sultan, raised from childhood, taken from Christian families in the Balkans, through the Devshirme levy. They are drilled like no one else in this century. They stand in their white felt hats, their faces hard, their discipline absolute. They do not laugh or chatter. They watch. You can almost hear the collective inhale when their officers call them to formation. Around them are cavalry contingents, spahis with curved sabers, armored lancers with horses snorting steam into the cool dawn. Auxiliary troops fill the rest. Azabs, irregular infantry, Tatars on fast ponies, Balkan contingents, Anatolian Turks, even hired mercenaries from farther afield. The empire has swallowed so many peoples that its army looks like a living map. And then there's the artillery. That's what really makes your stomach twist. The Ottomans have dragged bronze cannons across mountains and rivers, and now they squat outside the walls like beasts waiting to roar. The prize piece is Orban's giant bombard, cast in Adrianople months before. It is said to be so large that a man could crawl inside its barrel. It takes 60 oxen to drag it, and 300 men to handle it. They've laid wooden tracks and greased them with fat just to move it into position. You stare at that thing, and for the first time, the Theodosian walls don't look eternal anymore. Mehmed himself moves among his men on horseback, clad in fine armor, his youthful face set with determination. He is not lounging in a palace while others fight. He rides the lines, inspects the artillery crews, consults with his generals. At night, his pavilion glows with lamplight, and from within come the sounds of planning, of maps being spread, of voices debating where the hammer will fall. The Ottomans don't just camp, they build. You see trenches dug, earthworks rising, palisades driven into the ground. They aren't here for a quick raid. they're laying siege, as if the city already belongs to them, and they're just setting up housekeeping. You smell the pitch they heat, the iron they forge, the bread they bake in field ovens. It's a moving city, one with sharper teeth than the one it surrounds. For the men inside Constantinople, the sight is crushing. When you peer from the battlements, the fields that once grew grain and olives are now a forest of spear points and banners. Ottoman drums beat in rhythm, sometimes for hours, deep booms rolling across the valley, not so much to coordinate as to intimidate. It works. Citizens pause in their prayers when the drums start. Horses shy, dogs whimper. And then, as if this weren't enough, you hear the creak and splash of ships. Mehmed hasn't just brought an army by land. He has sailed a fleet to close off the city by sea. Between 150 ships now lie in the Bosphorus and the Sea of Marmara, galleys with rows of oars, sails furled, their prows turned toward Constantinople, like teeth bared. They're not warships on the Venetian scale, but they don't need to be. They just need to keep food and reinforcements from reaching the city. Imagine yourself as a citizen walking back down from the walls after watching all this. Do you sleep tonight? Probably not. You lie awake listening to the faint echo of hammers and chanting from the Ottoman camp. They are not afraid. They are not hesitating. They are building the instruments of your destruction, piece by piece. Still, there's a flicker of defiance. Inside the city, people whisper that numbers aren't everything, that the walls have always held, that God Himself watches over Constantinople. They remind each other that other armies, larger, fiercer, have come and broken against these stones, like waves against a cliff. But deep down, you feel it. This is different. Mehmed knows it too. You picture him sitting in his pavilion, late at night, studying by lamplight. He has already declared to his men, Constantinople will be his, or he will die before its walls. And if you're a betting person, you know where to put your coin. Step forward again, and you're no longer staring at Constantinople's defenders. You're standing in the scrubby fields and rolling slopes, just outside the Theodosian walls, where the Ottomans have begun to sink their teeth into the land itself. The siege lines form like a tightening noose, and every day you watch them pull closer. The work is relentless. Soldiers with shovels dig ditches, throw up earthen banks, and hammer wooden stakes into the ground. By the end of the week, the once open ground, outside the walls, looks like a construction site, the size of a small country. Siege lines stretch in long arcs, fortified with palisades, watchfires, and trenches deep enough to swallow a horse. They are designed not just to hem the city in, but to protect the Ottoman army from surprise sorties. You hear the groaning of carts arriving by the dozen, oxen sweating, men cursing as supplies pour into the camp. Grain, oil, salted meat, barrels of water, bundles of arrows, and long timbers for ladders and towers. If there's one thing Mehmed's army doesn't lack, it's preparation. This isn't a mob, it's a machine. From the towers of Constantinople, citizens stare down at this hive of activity. You're one of them for a moment, peering past crenellations. The air smells of damp earth and wood smoke, and you can pick out individual colors among the banners. Green for Islam, red for blood, gold embroidery catching the sunlight. The soundscape is just as vivid, the thud of stakes, the chant of laborers, the low growl of drums, and always the neighing of horses, restless, sensing the tension of their riders. Mehmed orders his camp laid out with precision. His tent city is arranged in rings of status. The Sultan's grand pavilion gleams at the center, draped in rich cloth, guarded by janissaries who stand like statues. Around him cluster the tents of his viziers and commanders, then rings of soldiers grouped by unit. To the south lie the artillery parks, where cannons are being assembled. To the north the cavalry pickets. To the east, overlooking the Bosphorus. The naval camp bristles with activity. When dusk falls, the whole plain lights up like a festival of fire. Torches, bonfires, lanterns in every tent. From within the city walls, the sight is terrifying. The Ottomans are not hiding. They want you to see their strength. Meanwhile, the defenders make their own adjustments. Patrols keep to the walls day and night. Watchmen light braziers at the gates. Soldiers shuffle along the battlements, armor clinking, eyes straining at the enemy campfires below. They know what's coming. It's not a question of if, but when. Inside the city, messengers scurry back and forth to the emperor. Constantine XI, Palaiologos, listens grimly, weighing every report. The Venetian and Genoese captains confer about naval defenses, but they too know they are outnumbered. Their galleys are swift and sturdy, but not many, barely enough to challenge Mehmed's fleet if it comes to a pitched battle. Out beyond the fields, the Ottomans start testing their positions. Cavalry raids probe the land walls. Archers loose arrows at scouting parties, and sometimes they creep close enough at night to harass the sentries with sudden bursts of fire or noise. These skirmishes aren't meant to win, they're meant to wear you down, to remind you that rest is a luxury Constantinople can no longer afford. And then there is the rhythm of the drums, hour after hour, night after night, a deep rolling beat that seeps into your chest like a second heartbeat. The Ottomans know psychology as well as steel. The citizens can't escape it. Whether they're cooking, praying, or trying to sleep, the drums hammer at their nerves, telling them the enemy is awake, alert, and closing in. Picture yourself now walking back through the streets after a long watch on the walls. You pass shuttered shops, darkened homes, and the flicker of lanterns, where families huddle together. Some pray to icons, lips moving silently. Others sharpen knives and stack whatever weapons they can muster. Children peek from behind curtains, eyes wide, while priests carry crosses from house to house, blessing doorways. Life is no longer ordinary. Every breath belongs to the siege. And outside, the lines keep tightening. Every ditch dug, every stake hammered, every cart unloaded, is one more stitch in the net. Mehmed has thrown over Constantinople. It is only a matter of time before he pulls it tight. Now, your gaze shifts to the southern stretches of the Ottoman camp, where the ground trembles under the arrival of machines that seem more alive than lifeless metal. The great cannons, the real monsters of this siege, begin to roll into position. You hear them before you see them. Chains clanking, oxen groaning, wooden wheels creaking under tons of bronze. Orban, the Hungarian engineer who built the largest of them, supervises with pride that borders on arrogance. Months earlier, he had offered his skills to the Byzantines, but they could not afford him. Mehmed, with deeper pockets and bigger dreams, welcomed him, and now you see the result. A bombard so huge that it stretches longer than a cart of hay, with a barrel wide enough that a child could crawl inside. 60 oxen strain against its harness, and 300 men push, pull, and curse it along greased wooden tracks. Every time it shifts, the ground seems to moan beneath its weight. When it finally lurches into its firing pit, even the Janissaries glance at it with awe. This is no ordinary weapon. This is a statement. Around it, lesser cannons are unlimbered. Dozens of them, some large enough to fire stone balls the size of barrels, others smaller, but quicker to reload. Crews swarm them like ants. Smiths, with hammers, loaders with powder kegs, carpenters shaping platforms. Fires crackle where iron tools are heated. The air smells of sulfur, sweat, and scorched wood. From the city walls, defenders watch with sinking hearts. They've seen mangonels, trebuchets, battering rams, even war elephants in the past. But nothing like this. The Theodosian walls have withstood centuries precisely because nothing could batter them down. Now, for the first time, it looks possible. You imagine the conversations in houses that night, whispers about the massive bombard, arguments about whether angels will intervene, or whether the prophecies of the end are being fulfilled before their eyes. The Ottomans waste no time. They begin constructing firing platforms, raising earthen mounds to steady the monsters. Teams dig trenches to absorb recoil. Carpenters lay wooden beams to hold the massive guns in place. Every detail is measured and planned. Mehmed himself rides out to inspect the progress, his young face lit by the glow of torches. He gestures sharply, issues orders, and rides on, tireless. Inside Constantinople, Constantine XI gathers his commanders, Junea's captain, Giovanni Giustiniani, Venetian leaders, Byzantine nobles. They pace around maps, argue over weak points, and debate how to meet this new threat. Some suggest sorties to destroy the cannons before they can fire. Others argue that the walls must be reinforced endlessly, with stone, wood, and even household rubble, if needed. Every citizen capable of lifting a rock or carrying mortar will soon have a role. As night settles, you hear a new sound, the booming test fires of the smaller cannons. The noise rolls across the fields like thunder, startling horses and silencing conversation inside the city. Windows rattle, birds scatter, and children cry. Even before the first true bombardment, the psychological war has begun. Picture yourself standing on the battlements at dawn, squinting into the rising light. The giant cannon looms below, its mouth dark and hungry. Around it, crews chant prayers and smear themselves with ash, as though preparing for a holy rite. They are not merely firing a gun, they are cracking open the gate of an empire. And when the first stone ball is rolled toward the barrel, slick with oil, and the powder kegs are tapped open, you feel the breath of history pause. The walls have always held, but for how much longer? Life inside the walls continues, but it has changed forever. You walk the crooked streets of Constantinople, and every sound now carries a double weight. The bells of Hagia Sophia are not just calling to prayer, they are a reminder that time is running short. The laughter of children in a courtyard is quickly shushed when a cannon thunders outside. Even the gulls circling above the harbors seem to cry warnings rather than songs. The city itself feels like a character on the edge of exhaustion. You trace its veins, the aqueducts still flowing, the cisterns still holding cool water, but rationing is already in effect. Bread is smaller, oil is stretched thinner. Fishmongers along the Golden Horn argue with sailors about prices, voices rising with desperation. Women carry loaves, wrapped in cloth, as if guarding treasure. Soldiers line up for salted meat, each portion measured and weighed. And yet, there's a stubborn rhythm to daily life. Markets still open, though fewer stalls are filled. Priests lead processions through the neighborhoods, swinging censers of incense, that smell of cloves and pine resin, their smoke drifting like fragile hope over the crowds. Candles burn late into the night in churches, where people kneel on stone floors and plead for divine mercy. Some cling to prophecies that an angel will appear at the last hour, sword blazing, to drive the invaders away. Others whisper darker prophecies of an emperor who will die defending the walls, and of a city swallowed in flame. The emperor himself, Constantine XI, Palaiologos, refuses to hide in his palace. You see him riding along the battlements, armor gleaming, saluting soldiers, speaking in calm tones to workers patching cracks in the masonry. His presence steadies the people, though they know he is mortal. His courage is infectious. If we must fall, he is said to have told his council, We shall fall with honor. You can almost hear the quiet murmur of approval from men and women who would follow him to the end. Among the defenders, you notice the variety: Greek soldiers with worn armor patched by leather, Venetian and Genoese sailors, sunburned and rough, who curse in their dialects but fight like lions, volunteers from Crete, Catalonia, and beyond, drawn by duty, profit. Many are mercenaries, but even mercenaries fight harder when they know the stakes. At night, the walls are alive with torches. Men patrol with bows strung and crossbows cocked. Buckets of water, sand, and oil stand ready for fires. Greek fire, Byzantium's ancient secret weapon, a liquid flame that clings and burns, is stored in barrels guarded jealously. The recipe is known to only a few, and it will be poured from siphons or thrown in clay pots should the Ottomans storm the walls. Inside homes, families huddled together. You imagine sitting in a dim chamber where a mother teaches her children to pray faster, in whispers, as if louder words might draw Ottoman arrows. Fathers sharpen rusty blades on whetstones, muttering about ancestors who fought Persians, Arabs, Bulgars, Crusaders, and now face Turks. Some still cling to pride. The walls have never fallen. Others sink into despair, muttering that this time is different, that no mortal wall can withstand such thunder. In the Blackenay Palace, by the northern walls, the emperor holds councils with Giovanni Giustiniani, the Genoese captain, who commands much of the defense. Giustiniani is sharp-eyed, battle-tested, and pragmatic. He knows the cannons will open breaches. He knows the Ottomans won't leave until they win. Still, he rallies the men, distributing weapons, arranging rotations, and setting up stockpiles of stones and timber near weak points. His confidence is like armor to those around him. Meanwhile, the ordinary citizens adapt. Masons and carpenters are drafted into service on the walls. Blacksmiths forge arrowheads and repair armor in forges that glow deep into the night. Women carry water to the battlements, patch tunics, and cook for soldiers. Children even run messages across the city, darting through alleys like sparrows. Everyone contributes, because everyone understands. If the walls break, no one is spared. You walk through the great Hagia Sophia one evening, where candles number in the thousands, their flames flickering against golden mosaics. Priests chant hymns that echo from the dome, rising to the rafters like waves. People kneel on the marble floor, tears streaking faces, hands raised. The air smells of incense, wax, and sweat. For some, it feels like heaven touching earth. For others, it feels like the world's last service before silence. Step outside again, and you hear the dull thud of Ottoman hammers striking cannonballs into shape. You realize how thin the city's hope has become. Supplies are short, reinforcements unlikely, and the enemy grows stronger each day. Yet somehow, Constantinople's people endure. They patch the walls, they share their meager bread, they pray louder than the cannons roar. Because even when doom is certain, life insists on continuing. And inside Constantinople, under the shadow of siege, life clings stubbornly, defiantly, to the very last breath. The first real bombardments come like thunderclaps from the earth itself. You're on the battlements at dawn, when the cry goes up, fire, and suddenly the plane shudders. A flash, a plume of smoke, and then the gut-punch roar of Orban's great bombard. The sound rattles your ribs, echoes down the valleys, and slaps against the stone beneath your feet. Birds erupt from the fields, dogs howl, and for one breathless instant, the entire world seems to pause. Then it lands. A massive stone ball, weighing nearly half a ton, smashes against the Theodosian walls. The impact is like an earthquake. Dust erupts in a geyser, stones grind, and a section of masonry quivers. Chips of rock rain down onto the soldiers below, Men cough, clutch their ears, and scramble to inspect the damage. And even though the walls hold, the message is clear. They can bleed. The smaller cannons join in, firing in succession, a rolling barrage that hammers the defenses hour after hour. Each one belches fire, smoke, and the acrid stench of gunpowder that drifts on the morning breeze. The Ottomans cheer each strike, their voices carrying across the fields and waves, as if every ball were a victory in itself. From inside the city, you feel it differently. The noise is unbearable, a constant growl punctuated by deafening crashes. Windows rattle, roof tiles shake, and in narrow alleys, women clutch children as though the sky itself is falling. Hagia Sophia's great dome trembles faintly, dust sifting down from its arches. Prayers grow louder with each blast, as if words alone might hold the stones in place. You lean over the parapet and watch defenders spring into action. Teams rush to reinforce the battered sections, hauling timbers, sandbags, and rubble. They stuff broken gaps with anything they can find: barrels, stones, even dismantled statues. Masons work feverishly under fire, sweat streaming, tools clanging. Some die where they stand, cut down by Ottoman arrows that whistle across the ditch, but others take their place immediately. The rhythm becomes brutal, but familiar. Boom, crash, dust, repair, repeat. For the soldiers on the walls, the cannon fire is as much psychological as physical. Every blast reminds them that this siege is different, that the old confidence of invulnerable walls is gone. Men whisper to each other between volleys, asking whether the angels still guard Constantinople or whether they've abandoned it. Still, they grip their spears tighter, as if sheer will might brace the stones. From the Ottoman side, you glimpse the spectacle: hundreds of men swarming around the great bombard, sweating as they load another monstrous stone. It takes hours to reload. The weapon is powerful, but painfully slow. Powder is tamped, shot is hoisted with ropes, wedges hammered to steady the barrel. Drummers beat a slow rhythm as the crews work, as though turning the labor into ritual. And when it fires again, the ground shakes anew. Not every shot lands true. Some balls glance off the walls and shatter harmlessly, spraying shards of rock across the fields. Others bury themselves in the outer moat, sending fountains of dirt into the air. The defenders cheer those misfires loudly, mocking the gunners with insults that echo from the battlements. It's a thin kind of victory, but in a siege, morale is worth as much as stone. Still, damage accumulates. Day by day, sections of the outer wall crumble, towers crack, and breaches begin to yawn wide enough for ladders. Each night, the defenders labor to patch them, hauling rubble by torchlight, singing hymns to keep their courage. The city becomes one vast construction site, its lifeblood poured into holding those ancient defenses together. One evening, as you walk along the maze, the city's main avenue, you notice how the cannon fire has changed people. Conversations are shorter, faces are thinner. The once bright mosaics of churches are coated with a fine, gray dust, shaken loose from the walls. Children no longer play openly. They crouch in corners when the bombard starts. Yet in the markets, bakers still knead dough, blacksmiths still hammer, and candles still burn in windows. Life adapts, even when death pounds at the gates. On the seventh day of bombardment, you wake to silence. No cannon, no crash. For a moment you think the Ottomans have given up. Then, without warning, the great bombard fires twice in a single day. The second strike blows a jagged hole in the outer wall near the gate of St. Romanus. Dust clouds blot out the sky. Men stagger, blinded, choking, and for the first time, Mehmed's soldiers surge forward, testing the breach. The defenders beat them back with arrows, stones, and fire. But the point has been made. The walls are mortal, and so are the men upon them. You lean against the battlements, heart hammering, ears ringing with each thunderclap. The drums never stop, the smoke never lifts, and the question hangs over every street, every household, every prayer. How long can stone outlast bronze? You wake the next morning to the familiar drumbeat of artillery, and your first thought is not despair, but routine. By now, the defenders of Constantinople have developed a rhythm to survive. The Ottomans tear holes into the walls by day, and the Byzantines patch them by night. It is a terrible, exhausting cycle, but it works, at least for the moment. From your vantage point on the battlements, you watch the defenders pour into the breaches. Teams of masons and carpenters swarm the damaged sections, carrying baskets of rubble, hauling timber beams, and dragging ropes heavy with sandbags. You hear the groan of wooden winches lifting stones into place, the clang of chisels shaping blocks, the shouts of foremen urging speed. Every gap blasted open by Mehmed's cannons is filled again before dawn, patched together with whatever the city can spare. Broken statues, paving stones, and even marble columns from abandoned churches find new life as barricades. At the same time, soldiers stand guard over the workers, shields raised against Ottoman arrows that whistle in from across the ditch. Some men fall struck by shafts or shrapnel, but others rush to replace them. There is no pause. If the wall stands at sunrise, the city lives another day. If not, the Ottomans will pour through. It is that simple. Greek fire makes its return in these desperate nights. You stand near one of the siphon teams, watching as they ready their bronze tubes. The liquid inside the barrels is thick, foul-smelling, a secret recipe guarded for centuries. When the enemy creeps close under cover of darkness, the defenders unleash it. Jets of flaming liquid that cling and burn with unnatural fury. Ottoman soldiers scream as fire engulfs them, and even water cannot quench it. For a moment the defenders cheer, remembering the days when Greek fire was their terror weapon on the seas. But supplies are limited, and each use is precious. Giovanni Giustiniani, the Genoese captain in charge of much of the land defense, is everywhere at once. You catch sight of him striding along the walls, shouting orders in Italian-accented Greek, rallying exhausted men, and personally inspecting each breach. His armor glints in the torchlight, and his presence alone steadies the line. The Byzantines whisper that without him, the walls would already be rubble. Meanwhile, the Ottomans adapt too. When their ladders are burned, they send miners to dig tunnels beneath the walls. You picture yourself crouched in the darkness of one of those tunnels, listening to the scrape of picks and shovels as they chew through the earth. Inside the city, counter-miners dig their own shafts, straining to intercept the attackers. Sometimes the tunnels meet underground, and brutal hand-to-hand combat erupts in the choking dark. Men fight with knives, torches, even bare hands, until one side collapses the passage with fire and smoke. The ground beneath Constantinople is as much a battlefield as the walls above. Every day brings new scars. Cannonballs crash against the towers, shaking dust loose from their interiors. The once smooth stone is now cracked, blackened, and pitted. From inside the city, you see scaffolding rising in strange places, hastily erected platforms where archers can fire down into the breaches. Families who once lived near the walls have moved deeper into the city, their homes now part of the defense. Some are dismantled entirely, their timbers carted away to reinforce gaps. And still, the city resists. Each evening, you see citizens trudging through the streets with baskets of stone or jars of water, their faces drawn with fatigue, but lit with grim determination. Monks chant as they march, carrying icons to the walls. Women bring bread to the workers. Children haul water to keep fires under control. Constantinople has become one giant army, Every man, woman, and child enlisted in the same cause, to hold back the tide. The nights are the hardest. When the cannon fire ceases, the silence feels unnatural, as if the city is holding its breath. Then come the sudden Ottoman assaults, shouts in the dark, ladders clattering against stone, arrows hissing through the night air. You stand on the battlements with the defenders, straining your eyes in the torchlight. Every shadow looks like a soldier climbing, every sound could be the enemy. And when they finally surge forward, the clash is immediate and brutal. Swords spark against shields, firepots crash down onto helmets, and the defenders push with all their weight to send the ladders tumbling. The smell of burning pitch and sweat fills the air, mixed with the cries of the wounded. But somehow, each time, the Ottomans are pushed back. The walls groan, the city bleeds, but it still stands. When dawn comes, you trudge down from the battlements, ears ringing from the clash, lungs full of smoke. You pass through streets littered with broken arrows, shattered tiles, and fragments of stone. But you also see people sweeping, cooking, even opening small shops for a few hours. Life insists on continuing, even under siege. You shake your head, half in awe, half in disbelief, and above you, the walls, patched, scarred, and blackened, still rise, defiant against the thunder of the great bombard. Stand now on the sea walls of Constantinople, and you see the other half of the noose tightening. The land walls groan under cannon fire, but by water the city clings to its ancient chain. The Golden Horn stretches northward, a wide inlet like an arm cradling the city, and across it lies Galata, a Genoese quarter that claims neutrality but eyes both sides warily. Spanning that water is the great iron chain, thick as tree trunks, floating on wooden pontoons, anchored at the Tower of Eugenius on the city's side, and the strong walls of Galata on the other. For centuries that chain has been Constantinople's shield at sea, keeping enemy ships out of the harbor. From the battlements, you gaze out at Mehmed's fleet. It is not as grand as Venice's or Genoa's, but it is relentless. Over 100 galleys, fustas, and transports, their oars slapping rhythmically, their sails furled as they maneuver close to the Bosphorus. Their prows glint in the sun, painted with symbols and eyes meant to ward off evil. Drummers beat time for the rowers, and the steady chant of oarsmen carries across the water like a heartbeat. The first test comes when a squadron approaches the Golden Horn. You hold your breath as they row hard toward the chain. The defenders unleash everything: arrows, bolts, and fire ships. Vessels packed with pitch and brushwood, set ablaze, and steered toward the attackers. The water becomes a chaos of smoke, fire, and screams. One Ottoman galley bursts into flames, its crew leaping into the sea. Others are forced back, retreating in confusion. The chain holds, for now. Inside the city, that victory is a breath of relief. The harbor remains open, a lifeline for supplies and reinforcements. Venetian and Genoese ships slip in, bringing grain, powder, and men. You walk the docks and see sailors unloading crates, their voices quick and nervous, their eyes darting to the horizon. Every barrel counts. Every sack of flour is gold. But Mehmed is not deterred. His fleet continues to harass the harbors, cutting off any chance of easy trade. You watch as Ottoman galleys cruise the Marmara, intercepting merchant ships, dragging their crews captive. Smoke rises from villages along the coast as raiders strip them bare. The message is clear: Constantinople is an island in a storm, its shores shrinking by the day. The defenders adapt as best they can. Cannons on the seawalls fire at approaching ships, their shots splashing into the waves, sometimes splintering hulls. Greek fire is prepared for naval clashes, loaded into clay pots to be hurled at close range. Crews sleep aboard their ships in the harbor, ready to cast off at a moment's notice. From your vantage on the docks, you see the nervous energy in every sailor's movements. They know the chain is only iron. Iron can break, or worse, be bypassed. Galata, just across the water, watches with its usual duplicity. The Genoese there are bound by trade agreements with the Ottomans, yet many have brothers, cousins, or friends inside Constantinople. Their walls remain closed, their soldiers watch from the battlements, but their loyalties are a coin tossed in the air. Some whisper that Galata has promised neutrality, others that it has promised to side with the winner. You imagine how the citizens must stare across the water, resenting the neighbors who share their churches but not their fate. As days pass, the naval blockade grows heavier. Ottoman ships fan out like a net, prowling both the Bosphorus and the Marmara. Sailors inside the city count the dwindling stores and glance nervously at the chain each morning. If that chain fails, the harbor is lost, and with it, the last artery of hope. But for now, the Golden Horn glitters defiantly, its great iron serpent stretched across the water, holding Mehmed at bay. And every citizen prays it will hold one day longer, because in a siege like this, a single day can mean everything. You're on the seawalls again when a rumor begins to ripple through the defenders. At first, a whisper, then a certainty. The Ottomans are moving their ships. You squint out over the Bosphorus, expecting sails, oars, and spray, but the water is strangely quiet. The fleet has vanished from its usual positions. Where could they be? The answer doesn't come from the sea, but from the hills above Galata. At dawn, you hear it, the creak of axles, the bellow of oxen, the rhythmic grunt of men hauling ropes. Then you see it, and your jaw goes slack. Mehmed has ordered his ships dragged across land. Picture the scene: over 70 galleys, hauled out of the Bosphorus, onto greased log rollers, dragged by teams of men and animals across the ridges that separate the Bosphorus from the Golden Horn. It is madness, the sort of plan generals laugh at over wine. Yet here it is, unfolding before your eyes. Workers pour oil over the timbers to slick the path, sparks flying as iron chains scrape rock. Drums beat a steady rhythm for the haulers, and soldiers line the hillsides cheering as the impossible becomes real. From the city walls, the defenders stare in horror. Ships appear not from the sea, but from the land itself, cresting hills like monsters. The spectacle is terrifying, a reminder of Mehmed's audacity and relentless will. By the end of the day, the impossible has been achieved. An entire Ottoman fleet now sits inside the Golden Horn, bypassing the Great Chain as if it were no more than a child's toy. The impact is immediate. Constantinople's last safe harbor is now threatened from within. Ottoman galleys anchor under the very shadow of Galata, their prows aimed directly at the city's seawalls. From your perch, you see sailors unloading supplies, archers stringing bows, and small cannons wheeled onto decks. The defenders scramble to reposition, hauling artillery and men to the waterfront. Panic crackles through the city like dry tinder. The Venetians and Genoese inside Constantinople are livid, cursing Galata for allowing this. The Genoese across the water claim neutrality still, but their silence, as the Ottomans dragged ships past their walls, is betrayal enough. You hear sailors spitting on the ground, muttering that Galata should burn with the rest when the end comes. Constantine XI rallies his commanders. Orders are shouted, flags hoisted, and the Christian fleet inside the harbor prepares for battle. By nightfall, galleys bristle with armed men, crossbows cocked, pots of Greek fire ready. Lanterns swing from masts, their flames mirrored on the rippling water. The harbor that once felt like sanctuary now feels like a trap. Two fleets glaring at each other across dark waves. Meanwhile, Life in the city tightens further. The Ottomans now control both sea approaches, the Marmara by blockade, and the Golden Horn by audacity. Supply lines are cut. Hope for reinforcements dims. You walk the markets and see bread shrink further, wine stretched with water, oil sold drop by drop. Yet somehow, the people endure. A woman lights a candle at a street shrine, whispering to a saint. A boy sharpens a spearhead on a stone. The air reeks of smoke and sweat, but beneath it runs a current of stubborn faith. Out in the harbor, the Ottoman ships settle into their new positions, their dark hulls bobbing like wolves at the edge of a pen. And from the sea walls, you understand, the chain was never broken. It was simply made irrelevant. Muhammad has turned geography itself into a weapon. The defenders whisper among themselves, if the Sultan can drag ships over mountains, what else is he capable of? By now, Constantinople is a fortress under siege in every sense. Walls battered, harbor threatened, people worn thin, and yet, beyond the fighting and the cannon smoke, there is a quieter, desperate battle being waged, the search for allies. Constantine XI knows the city cannot hold forever alone. If aid does not come from the west, the Ottomans' numbers will smother them. So he sends messengers. You picture the ragged little ships slipping out at night, hugging the Marmara coastline, dodging Ottoman patrols. Their holds are empty of cargo, but full of pleas. Letters bound for Venice, for Genoa, for Rome. Inside them, desperate appeals written in hurried Greek and Latin. Send men, send ships, send gold. If Constantinople falls, Christendom's gate falls with it. The responses are a cruel mixture of sympathy and delay. In Rome, Pope Nicholas V thunders from the pulpit that the holy city must be saved. He sends envoys and even a handful of soldiers, but he cannot conjure a crusade overnight. In Venice, the Senate debates endlessly, balancing the risk of war with the lure of trade with the Ottomans. A fleet is promised, but it moves slowly, too slowly. Genoa, fractured and cautious, sends token support but holds back its full weight. Everyone agrees Constantinople must not fall, but few are willing to sacrifice much to stop it. Inside the walls, these half-promises are both balm and torment. You overhear citizens whispering in markets. The Pope will send an army. The Venetians are coming with 50 ships. The Hungarians will march soon. Hope flares, fragile as a candle, then guttering when days pass without sight of sails on the horizon. Religious tension adds to the strain. Just before the siege, Constantine XI agreed to the Union of Churches, a controversial pact meant to reunite Eastern Orthodoxy with Rome, hoping to win Western aid. Latin priests now serve alongside Orthodox clergy in Hagia Sophia, chanting in Latin as well as Greek. But many citizens despise this compromise, calling it betrayal. You hear it in the streets, better the Sultan's turban than the Pope's tiara. The irony is bitter. Aid may come only through unity, but unity tears the people apart. Meanwhile, within the city, foreign allies already present take their places. Giovanni Giustiniani and his Genoese soldiers form the backbone of the land defense. Venetian captains patrol the harbor, their galleys darting out for quick strikes. Volunteers from Crete, Catalonia, and even a few French knights join the fight, their banners fluttering awkwardly among the Byzantine double-headed eagles. It is a patchwork army, a mosaic of languages and loyalties, but stitched together by necessity. You imagine walking into one of their war councils, Constantine seated at the head, Giustiniani standing firm, Venetian captains arguing over naval maneuvers, Byzantine nobles debating prophecy as much as strategy. Maps are spread across the table, ink-stained fingers tracing weak points, voices rising. At last, silence falls. and the emperor speaks plainly. We cannot outlast them. We must outfight them. His words settle like stones. Outside, Mehmed tightens the noose. His envoys ride to the walls, offering terms: surrender the city, and lives will be spared. Refuse, and only death awaits. The defenders shout back insults, arrows clattering against Ottoman shields. The offer is rejected. There will be no peaceful end. In the streets of Constantinople, the people prepare themselves in their own ways. Some sharpen blades and stack stones to hurl from the walls. Others kneel in churches, confessing sins in whispers, readying their souls for what comes. Children ask their parents if angels will descend. Parents lie and say yes. And when night falls, the conversations turn once again to hope for allies. Perhaps the Venetian fleet is only delayed by winds. Perhaps the Hungarians are marching already. Perhaps tomorrow we will see sails on the horizon. You lie awake listening to these whispers, and you know the truth. The West is watching, but it is not coming in time. The siege presses into its second month, and life inside Constantinople grows thin, strained, and surreal. The cannon fire no longer startles anyone. It is as much a part of the city's heartbeat as the bells of Hagia Sophia. You wake to it, you eat with it in the background, and you fall asleep to its distant rumble, though sleep itself comes fitfully. Famine gnaws first at the poorest. Bread loaves shrink until they resemble crusts, sold at prices no one can afford. Fish still trickle in from the harbor. But with the Ottoman fleet prowling the Golden Horn, even that lifeline grows uncertain. You walk through the markets and see stalls, half empty, women arguing bitterly over a handful of olives, men clutching their purses tighter as if a coin might magically multiply. In narrow alleys, the smell of rotting refuse mixes with sweat and smoke, and stray dogs scavenge scraps as fiercely as men. Disease follows hunger. The crowded quarters near the walls reek of sickness. Fevers, rashes, coughs that do not stop. Children lie listless in doorways, their mothers fanning them with rags. Priests pass by carrying icons, muttering prayers over the ill. The city's cisterns still hold water, but even they taste foul now, tinged with smoke and dust shaken loose by the endless bombardment. And yet, there is an intensity in the air, a strange sharpening of faith. Every evening, Hagia Sophia fills to bursting. Candles blaze against mosaics that shimmer despite their cracks, and chants rise until they drown the roar of the cannons outside. Orthodox priests lift crosses high, while Latin clergy intone in their own tongue. Awkward, uneasy, but together, the great schism seems to matter less. When both sides know they may be dead within the week, you kneel on the cool marble and feel the vibration of each distant impact beneath your knees, as if the very stones are joining in prayer. On the walls, the defenders sag under exhaustion. Their faces are hollow, beards untrimmed, armor dented. Yet they fight like men possessed. When the cannonballs crash through, they rush forward instinctively, hauling beams, sandbags, and rubble to fill the gaps. Some men fight with wounds, barely stitched, limping, coughing, but unwilling to leave their posts. Giustiniani is still everywhere, commanding, exhorting, sometimes physically dragging men back into the fight when despair takes them. His voice is hoarse, but his presence remains iron. The Emperor, Constantine XI, is no distant ruler, hiding in marble halls. You see him often, riding the streets in battered armor, speaking directly to citizens, promising them that he will die with them if need be. He walks Hagia Sophia by night, kneeling with the common people, his lips moving in prayer. The sight of their emperor humbling himself before the same icons comforts many, even as it confirms what they all know: this is the end game. The nights inside the walls are uncanny. Fires burn on every tower, torches gutter along the battlements, and the shadows of exhausted soldiers stretch long across the stone. Children lie awake, ears twitching at every cheer or scream, learning too young how close death sounds. Some families gather in circles, whispering old prophecies, the angel who will descend to save the city, the last emperor who will fall like Constantine the Great, the day when Hagia Sophia's dome will collapse in fire. Fear and faith mix into something inseparable, and through it all, there are still sparks of human stubbornness. You pass a blacksmith's forge, glowing red, as he hammers out arrowheads late into the night. You see a baker knead dough with hands blistered, still determined to feed whoever he can. Children carry stones in baskets to the walls, proud to be part of the defense. Even in hunger, even in sickness, life continues, because to stop is to surrender. From the ramparts, you look out at the Ottoman campfires glittering like a second sky across the plain. Their drums rumble, their cannons thunder, their banners snap in the night wind. But then you look back into the city, at the candlelit dome of Hagia Sophia, at the ragged defenders still standing, at the emperor himself, pacing the walls, and you realize why it hasn't fallen yet. This is not just a siege of stone and flesh. It is a siege of will. And so far, Constantinople's will, though cracked and weary, still refuses to break. By now, the siege has dragged on for weeks, and Mehmed grows impatient. The cannons have battered the walls, breaches open each day, only to be patched by night. The fleet now floats menacingly inside the Golden Horn, but still the city refuses to break. So the Sultan decides to test the walls with flesh, as well as stone. The first major assaults begin. You are on the battlements near the gate of St. Romanus. When the alarm bells ring, from the Ottoman camp, lines of infantry surge forward. Azov's first, the irregular troops, barefoot and lightly armed. They carry ladders, hooks, and shields cobbled from wood. Their role is not to win, but to exhaust. You watch as they run, shouting into the ditch, arrows raining down from the walls. The defenders release a storm, arrows, crossbow bolts, and fire pots. The first wave collapses in chaos, men scrambling over each other, ladders falling back into the moat. But behind them, another wave comes, and another. From your vantage point, the assault looks endless. A human tide throwing itself against stone. The noise is deafening, drums pounding, trumpets blaring, shouts in Greek, Italian, Turkish, Arabic. Smoke fills the air as firepots burst, flames licking ladders and men alike. Stones the size of melons are heaved down from the parapets, crushing helmets, shattering bones. The ditch becomes a killing ground, but still more come. Hours later, the Janissaries themselves step forward. You feel the mood shift instantly. These are not irregulars. They advance in disciplined ranks, shields locked, spears ready. Their officers call the rhythm, their chants echoing. They move with terrible precision, and the defenders know this is the true test. Ladders slam against the walls, and the clash of steel on steel begins. Hands grasp the battlements, swords flash in the torchlight. Defenders hack at fingers, pour boiling oil, push ladders backward. The struggle is desperate, close, and personal. You can smell blood and burning pitch in the air. At one point, a janissary, cresting the wall, swings his scimitar toward a defender's head, only to be met by a Byzantine soldier who drives a spear through his chest. The man topples backward, his scream lost in the din. The ladder is heaved away, and it crashes into the ditch, carrying more men with it. For every assault repelled, though, the defenders pay dearly. Exhaustion carves into their faces. Their arms tremble with fatigue, and the walls beneath them quake with every cannon blast. Yet the Ottomans cannot break through. By evening, the Janissaries withdraw, their ranks tattered. Drums beat a slow retreat, and the defenders erupt into cheers, waving swords, banging shields against the stone. The city has survived another day. But when the cheers fade, the silence is grim. Hundreds of bodies lie in the ditch, torches casting eerie shadows over broken forms. The smell of blood carries into the city, sour and metallic. And in the streets, you see citizens carrying stretchers, hauling the wounded to makeshift hospitals and churches. Priests anoint the dying, women wash wounds, children run with water. Hagia Sophia glows with candlelight all night, chants rising for the souls of the fallen. Mehmed does not rest either. The very next morning, the cannons roar again. Another breach opens, another assault follows, and again the defenders hold. This rhythm repeats, day after day, week after week. The Ottomans surge forward in fury. The Byzantines cling to the walls with desperation. Neither side yields. Still the strain is telling. You walk through the neighborhoods near the land walls and see homes shattered by cannonballs, roofs collapsed, families huddled in cellars. In the markets, bread grows scarcer. Men grumble about hunger, though none dare speak of surrender. Everywhere, faces are thinner, eyes sunken, voices hoarse. One evening, after repelling yet another wave, you stand with the defenders on the battlements, sweat streaking your face, hands raw from hauling stones. Around you, men collapse where they stand, too tired to eat. The air stinks of smoke and iron, and you realize these assaults aren't just tests. Mehmed is grinding the defenders down, day by day, blow by blow. He can afford to lose men. The city cannot. Still, Constantinople holds. And every dawn, when the sun rises red through the haze, you hear the same chant echo from the walls. The city stands. God wills it. The city is worn raw by now, its walls cracked, its people gaunt, its streets choked with dust and fear. Everyone knows the end is near, even if they will not say it aloud. The question is not if the Ottomans will try again, but when. And the answer comes as whispers ripple through both camps. Mehmed is preparing his final blow. From the battlements, you watch the Ottoman camp transform. Where once there was the steady rhythm of routine, now there is feverish urgency. Tents are shifted, fires burn late, and smithies roar night and day. Cannon crews double their efforts, pounding the same breaches with relentless fury until the stone gapes like broken teeth. Engineers stack fascines, bundles of sticks to fill the ditches, while carpenters hammer ladders and siege towers. The smell of pitch and fresh-cut wood drifts even to the city walls. Mehmed himself rides the lines daily, his armor gleaming, his face taut with youth and determination. He stops before each regiment, speaking to them, in turn, promises of plunder, of glory, of paradise for those who die in the Prophet's name. You hear his voice carried by the wind. The city is yours, if you are brave enough to take it. The Janissaries, the pride of his army, respond with a roar that chills you even from afar. Inside the city, Constantine XI knows the storm is almost upon him. He gathers his commanders in the Blockernay Palace. Picture the hall lit by flickering torches, the emperor in dented armor, his crown set aside. Around him stand Giustiniani, Venetian captains, Byzantine nobles, Latin priests. Maps are spread on the table, weighed down by daggers and cups of watered wine. The emperor speaks plainly. There is no hope of rescue, no miracle fleet sailing over the horizon. They must fight with what they have. Giustiniani takes command of the land walls at the gate of St. Romanus, the very section most battered by cannon fire. Venetians and Genoese ready their ships in the Golden Horn, prepared to ram and burn any Ottoman galley that dares approach. Monks and priests promise to walk the walls with crosses, urging courage with hymns. Even common citizens are given arms, rusted swords, spears with splintered shafts, kitchen knives tied to poles. That evening, the emperor gathers his people in Hagia Sophia for one final liturgy. You step inside with them, and the sight sears itself into your memory. Candles, by the thousands, cast golden light on mosaics cracked but still radiant. The dome, vast and echoing, trembles with the voices of men and women singing together, Orthodox and Catholic alike. The air is thick with incense and sweat. Constantine kneels before the altar, tears on his cheeks, and the crowd kneels with him. For one moment, the city is united, not by politics or theology, but by the knowledge that this is their last night together. When the service ends, people embrace in the streets, brothers, enemies, strangers alike. Soldiers clasp arms with sailors, women kiss children fiercely, old men murmur blessings. Some walk the walls in silence, tracing the stones with their fingers as if saying goodbye. Others pray alone in doorways, clutching icons. You imagine yourself among them, the night air heavy with smoke and the constant thud of distant hammers as the Ottomans prepare. The stars above seem dimmer, their light drowned by the glow of thousands of campfires outside the walls. Across the plain you hear chants and drums, louder than ever, as if the enemy is summoning every spirit of war. In the emperor's chambers, Constantine writes letters, farewells to those who will never receive them. He dons his armor once more, not the gilded trappings of a ruler, but the plain steel of a soldier. He is resolved to die as one of his people. His words echo, "I will not leave you. I will die with you." As dawn approaches, the city itself seems to hold its breath. The walls are scarred but patched. The people are starving but defiant. The candles of Hagia Sophia gutter out, leaving only the pale light of the moon. And from the Ottoman camp comes a sound like thunder rolling closer, drums, horns, and the stamping of feet. The dawn of May 29, 1453, breaks red over Constantinople, though it is hard to tell where the sun ends and the flames of the Ottoman camp begin. From your place on the battlements, you hear it first, drums pounding like war's heartbeat, horns blaring, voices rising in unison. The plain outside the walls seethes with motion, tens of thousands of men surging into place, banners snapping, weapons glinting. It is not a battle line, it is a tide. The first assault begins with the irregulars. The Azab sent forward in waves, barefoot, lightly armed. They charge shouting toward the breaches, ladders raised, shields lifted against the hail of arrows. They are not expected to win. They are expected to tire you out, to bleed you, to fill the ditches with their bodies, if necessary. From the walls, you and your fellow defenders rain down bolts, arrows, stones, and fire. Boiling water splashes, Greek fire burst in sudden horrific blooms. Men scream, stumble, and fall. Yet more come. The ditch becomes a churn of bodies and smoke. But before you can breathe, the second wave advances. These are Anatolian troops, better armed, steadier, pushing forward with ladders, grappling hooks, and shields. They strike the same breaches hammered for weeks by cannon fire, focusing on the weakened gate of St. Romanus. The air fills with the clash of steel and the thunder of cannon as stone balls smash against towers already cracked. Dust blinds you, smoke chokes you, and the cries of the wounded echo down the walls. Still, the defenders hold. Giustiani is everywhere, striding the ramparts in his heavy armor, shouting orders, rallying men who stagger under exhaustion. His presence steadies you, even as the ladders slam against the walls. Again and again, the defenders heave them backward, sometimes with bare hands, sometimes with the weight of a dozen men, pushing as one. Each crash as a ladder falls carries a cheer, though every cheer is cut short by another assault. Then comes the third wave, the Janissaries. You feel the air change as they advance. Discipline radiates from them, their ranks tight, their shields locked. They move under the beat of great drums, their chants steady, unyielding. Behind them, Mehmed himself rides forward to watch, his armor gleaming, his face young, but set with iron resolve. He has promised them Constantinople. They mean to take it. The clash is immediate and terrible. Janissaries swarm the breaches, driving their ladders higher, thrusting spears into every gap. Defenders hack at their hands, shove beams against the ladders, pour pitch and fire. The noise is beyond deafening. It is chaos made sound, cannon blasts, horns, steel on steel, men screaming in Turkish, Greek, Italian, Latin. The walls shake beneath you, dust stinging your eyes. The air reeks of sulfur, blood, and burning wood. At one breach, the Janissaries gain a foothold. A dozen of them crest the wall, their curved blades flashing. For a heartbeat, panic surges, but Justinian himself charges, his sword rising, and with the defenders at his back, they drive the Ottomans down. The wall holds, but barely. Hours pass like minutes, each moment filled with struggle. The sun climbs higher, the heat grows, but still the waves come. The defenders fight until their arms feel like lead, until their mouths are dry as dust. And yet, they fight on, because the alternative is unthinkable. Down in the city, the bells of Hagia Sophia ring endlessly. Priests lead processions through the streets, icons lifted high, chants rising louder than the cannon. Women carry water to the walls, children run with stones and arrows. Old men sharpen weapons. The whole city has become an army. Still, as you glance along the line, you see it, exhaustion. The walls are cracked, the breaches wider. Giustiniani stumbles, wounded, though he hides it at first. The defenders fight like lions, but they are lions outnumbered 100-1. And out in the plain, Mehmed does not relent. He hurls his army forward again, wave after wave, relentless, remorseless. His drums never stop, his cannons never cease, his banners never falter. You grip your weapon tighter, sweat stinging your eyes, dust caking your throat, and you know this is the moment. Constantinople either holds today or it dies today. The walls are trembling now, not just from the cannon blasts, but from the sheer weight of men pressing against them. You stand at the battered gate of St. Romanus, where the breach yawns wider with each strike. Dust clouds rise like smoke from a burning mountain, stones grind and split, and the cries of battle roll over you in waves. For hours you've watched the defenders hold. Giustiniani's Genoese stand shoulder to shoulder with Byzantines, crossbows loosing, swords flashing, shields braced. The air is thick with the hiss of arrows, the crash of ladders, the shouts of men calling on God, on saints, on ancestors. Yet now you see fatigue in every motion, arms too slow to parry, knees buckling under armor, men staggering when once they leapt forward. And then it happens. A stone ball, from the great bombard, slams into the weakened wall, shaking the earth like an earthquake. The breach splits wider, rubble cascading, and in that instant, Mehmed's Janissaries surge forward with terrifying precision. Ladders slam against the walls, hooks bite into the stone, and a storm of men climbs with a roar. Giustiniani, the stalwart commander, is struck, some say, by an arrow, others by cannon shrapnel. He collapses, wounded grievously. The defenders cry out in shock, their rallying point gone. His men try to carry him back, but in doing so, the line falters. Confusion ripples through the defenders, and panic is a disease faster than fire. The Janissaries seize their moment. They pour into the breach, shouting, their curved blades flashing. Defenders fight desperately, but the tide is too strong. One ladder after another brings more men up, until the ramparts swarm with Ottoman soldiers. You swing your gaze across the walls. Smoke, fire, chaos. The line is broken. Constantine XI appears, his armor battered, his face streaked with sweat and dust. He rides straight into the melee, sword raised, rallying his men. You hear him shout, clear even above the din. The city is lost, but I live still. He plunges into the breach, striking down foes left and right. Those around him draw courage from his fury, holding a few moments longer. But it is too late. The walls that stood for 1,000 years now gape open. Ottoman banners rise above the towers. Trumpets blare from Mehmed's camp, answered by cheers that sound like thunder. The defenders' cheers, once proud, dissolve into cries of fear and despair. Men throw down their weapons, some fleeing into the city, others fighting to the last. The breach becomes a slaughterhouse, blood on stone, bodies crushed underfoot, steel clashing endlessly. You turn toward the city, and the sight is heartbreaking. Citizens rush through the streets, some toward Hagia Sophia, believing sanctuary will save them, others toward their homes, clutching children, dragging bundles of belongings. Bells toll madly, their clangor mixing with the screams. Smoke rises where fire pots topple, setting rooftops ablaze. Yet even as doom spreads, there are pockets of defiance. On the walls, a handful of men fight to the last, hurling stones with bare hands when their swords break. In the streets, priests carry crosses, chanting even as chaos swallows them. Women throw tiles from rooftops, curses flying from their lips. It is resistance, hopeless but defiant, the city's final breath. By mid-morning, the breach is fully in Ottoman hands. Janissaries pour through, fanning into the streets, cutting down resistance. The gate of St. Romanius, once patched and defended night after night, lies shattered. Through it marches the future, and with it, the end of Byzantium. You grip the battlements, lungs heaving, eyes stinging with smoke and tears. The city is falling before your very eyes, and deep down you know this moment will echo for centuries. The walls are lost, and with them, the city's last shield. You stumble back through the dust-choked streets of Constantinople as the Ottomans surge inward. Trumpets wail, drums pound, and the clash of steel on stone echoes through every alley. The ground trembles with the march of tens of thousands of feet, the roars of soldiers, the screams of the fleeing. At Hagia Sophia, crowds surge toward the doors, believing the great church will be a sanctuary. Men, women, children press inside, the vast dome filling with prayers and sobs. Candles gutter as thousands kneel, clutching icons, begging saints to descend. The golden mosaics shimmer in the dim light, as though the walls themselves are weeping, but the sanctuary will not save them. Soon, the sound of axes at the doors drowns the hymns. When they burst open, soldiers flood in, and the last voices of the city are silenced beneath steel. In the streets, looting begins, instantly. Fires spread from house to house as soldiers seize what they can. Coins, silks, calices, even children dragged screaming into slavery. Horses clatter across marble avenues, Ottomans shouting commands as they drive captives into groups. The air reeks of smoke, blood, sweat, and fear. Constantine XI is seen one last time near the breach. He casts aside his purple cloak, crying out that he will not live as a slave. With sword in hand, he throws himself into the melee. His body is never found, lost beneath the crush of men, but the story spreads at once. The last emperor of Rome died with his city, as he had sworn. By midday, The banners of the crescent rise above Constantinople's towers. Janissaries trumpet their victory, and from the Ottoman camp Mehmed rides forward. The young sultan enters the city, not as a besieger now, but as a conqueror. He rides through streets littered with rubble and corpses, past weeping captives, past flames that still devour houses. At Hagia Sophia, he dismounts, steps inside, and gazes up at the great dome. He orders it cleansed and consecrated as a mosque, where once choirs sang. The muezzin's call will now rise. The fall is total. 1,000 years of empire end in a single morning. The Byzantine eagle is torn down, its wings broken. The last link to Rome vanishes in dust and fire, and you, standing amid the smoke, feel the weight of history settle on your shoulders. You are witnessing not just a conquest, but a turning of the age. The city that had once been the heart of Christendom now beats to a new rhythm. The world will never be the same. The roar fades, the clash dissolves, and what remains is silence. The kind of silence that comes not from peace, but from exhaustion, when even grief is too heavy for words. You walk slowly through the emptying streets of Constantinople, the stones warm beneath your feet. They are still carrying the smell of smoke and incense. The walls that once stood invincible now lean broken against the sky. The markets where merchants once shouted now hold only ash. The harbor, once glimmering with sails, lies dark beneath the rising crescent. And yet, in this quiet, there is a strange softness. The empire may have ended, but the city still stands. Its domes still glow faintly in the fading light. Its streets still wind stubbornly toward the sea. Life will return here, though not the life that was. A new chapter begins, written by hands younger and hungrier, carrying the city's soul forward into another age. You take a slow breath. The bells of Hagia Sophia are silent now, but in their place, another sound will rise. And centuries later, the city will still be here, under another name, another flag, but still alive, still luminous. So let your shoulders ease. Let the dust of battle drift away from your thoughts. The story has ended, but its echo carries onward, softer now, fading into whispers. Picture the sea beyond the walls, calm at last, its waves smoothing the scars of war. Picture the stars above, patient as ever, watching empires rise and fall. And let yourself drift with that thought. Empires end, but the night remains eternal, steady, and still. Good night, sweet dreams.